Hold on. Nigga, that should just work. Hold on.
If you were invited to a mansion only to be kept prisoner as a vampire's bride, what would you do?
I'm good.
I'm going to break down
able to start
mistakes made,
recording
what you
anytime I
should
want to
do,
now.
and how to beat the vampire lord in the invitation. This college student is going to kill Dracula. Evie here is at home and learning how to use her new DNA testing kit. Her whole family is dead, and wanting to see if any relatives are still alive, she decides to try it out. The woman doesn't want to be alone anymore and sends the test back to the company with no idea that she's going to be kidnapped by be alone anymore and
crazy bump on her head. Hold on. She hit the wall on accident.
The test back to the company with no idea that she's going to be kidnapped by a cult of bloodthirsty vampires. Days later, she hangs out with her best friend when she gets an email from the DNA testing company revealing that she has a British cousin. He wants to meet with her soon, but Evie's friend finds it suspicious. They know nothing about this guy, and the friend jokes that he might be planning on taking her organs. It sounds crazy, and the college student reassures the woman that she's being paranoid, replying to the man to set up a reunion. The next morning, she meets with her cousin for lunch, and he happily reveals that everyone in her extended family wants to meet her. He suggests she comes to England for their aunt's wedding to meet the rest of the clan, and the woman tells him she can't afford the trip, but the man reassures her that he'll cover the cost. Surprised, Evie is blown away by his generosity, and with a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity in her hands, she accepts. Traveling to Yorkshire, the woman is picked up by her cousin, and she's taken deep into the English countryside to this huge manor. Getting out of the car, the college student admires the scenery and starts to text her friend, but bumps right into a maid. The woman drops a crate of wine glasses on the ground, and Evie immediately gets down to help her clean up the mess. The maid is surprised by her kindness, but then this butler comes over and orders the helpers to clean up faster. Angry, the college student confronts him, but they're interrupted when Walter here steps in. The butler quickly excuses himself, and the woman asks the man who he is, but that's when the cousin joins them, introducing Walter as the Lord of the Manor. Evie can't help but find him charming, and soon, she'll discover he's hiding a terrible secret. Later, the butler gives her a tour of the building, telling her she's allowed to go anywhere in the estate except for the library, and leads the American upstairs where she meets Mrs. Swift, her personal maid. The older woman takes her into the guest room, and the college student is amazed by how fancy everything is. But then she notices something strange. There are spiked bars in the window, and the maid explains that the local shrikes start attacking people around this time of the year. It's shocking to hear, and as the American finishes looking around, she spots a painting of a woman. The maid explains that it's the former lady of the house, but she sadly passed away recently. With everything sorted, the old woman leaves the room, but soon she'll be the only person
I just realized my dad.
in the entire country that Evie can trust. Okay, something doesn't add up here. Earlier, this maid told Evie a story about the local shrikes, explaining that they plucked out a stable boy's eye, and these window bars are meant to keep the birds away. Now, this might sound crazy, but shrikes have actually been known to attack humans, and will impale their prey on spikes before stripping away the meat. It's brutal, but the strange thing is, if you look at the design of the window bars, it has a half-inch white spike, and it's clear that they were not designed to repel these birds. If anything, it would be the perfect design for a front row seat to watch one of nature's most savage predators kill its prey, and that likely means that this woman is already lying to us. Normally, you would want to have long, thin spikes that are densely clustered so that the birds can't perch. And if the maid isn't being honest about something as simple as their window bars, then we can only imagine what else she might be hiding. Now, there's another suspicious detail, and that's the Russian doll that was given by the Maids of Honor. What's strange is that not only have we not met them yet, but we also aren't in the wedding, and we were the only guests to get one. For a wealthy English family to give their only American guest a Russian doll is such a weird thing to do that we have to assume there's a meaning behind this. What's interesting is that Matryoshka dolls actually symbolize a mother carrying a child within her, and represent a chain of mothers carrying on the family legacy through their children. This should be freaking Evie out, because when you add up all these details together, it starts to become clear that there's definitely an ulterior motive. The cousin was way too eager to meet up and pay for her trip, and the personal gift might be symbolizing that they see her as someone who should continue their family lineage. The truth is, we don't know anything about these people. So if I were Evie here, the least I could do is use my phone to verify everyone's stories by searching up the members of these wealthy families. We know the Lord of the Manor is called Walter DeVille, and the couple who are supposed to get married are Martin Alexander and Cecil DeVille. These families are obviously well connected, and the cousin told us that this will be the wedding of the century. That's a pretty serious claim, and if these people are who they say they are, then it would definitely come up in a Google search. In the UK, the public can easily access birth, marriage, and death records online, and if the information information we find is wildly different from what we're being told, then we have every reason to suspect that we might be in danger. That night, the student goes out for a run, but comes to a stop. There's something wrong with this place, and when Evie looks back at the house, she sees a woman staring through the window that looks identical to the lady of the manor. Suddenly, Evie wakes up from her nightmare and spots a figure sitting in the chair across from her. Terrified, she turns on the lights and finds no one there. She quickly leaves the room to get some water, but as Evie walks through the hallway, she spots the butler giving instructions to the maids, and they all look scared to death. The woman doesn't notice a creature's hand reaching out towards her, but at the last second, she turns around, finding the hallway empty. That's when the old maid sneaks up on her, insisting that she should go back to bed, and Evie asks what's going on downstairs. The old maid only tells her that they're doing a final round of cleaning, but the girl won't find out what's really happening until it's too late. Meanwhile, downstairs, the butler opens the library door for the helper, and the girl walks inside with no idea this was a trap. The maid starts lighting candles in the room when she hears something creaking in the darkness, and the candles are blown out one by one. Terrified, the girl backs up when she spots a creature on the ceiling and screams as the monster attacks her. The next morning, Evie wakes up and is told that her family reunion has...
Nigga, ain't no way. I did not realize this whole time. Nigga, this movie is based off of this girl being a fucking idiot. Why in the hell? Nigga, she just accepted her fate, just moved in and everything, then slipped there. Nigga, she not shook that she didn't wake up onto a random area. She getting shipped off. Like, why would you come here? Like, black market. Nigga, her friend told her something like about the black market. Nigga, I would be afraid that I wouldn't wake up. Like, why would you think she... Is this a... No, this is her first night here, but why would you, like, even, like, trust it? You don't know none of these people. You might be related to them, but that don't mean nothing. Don't nobody else but your friend, and your friend don't know how long you gonna be out here for. I would think that you just don't want to talk to me no more or something. I don't know. This lady a dickhead. I don't know why she would do this.
Has already started. Getting out of bed, she heads downstairs to meet her relatives, and her great-uncle decides to make a toast, welcoming the woman to their clan. He's overjoyed that the family finally has a woman in the family, and although it sounds like a joke, she'll discover the dark secret they're all hiding. Meanwhile, the butler unlocks the gate to the wine cellar and tells these maids to fetch a specific bottle. Suspicious, the woman asks him why they're being sent in pairs, and the man reminds her that she can be a bit clumsy, so she'll need help. With their orders given, the women walk down into the cellar and begin looking around, but as they're searching, a hand suddenly touches this maid's head. At first, Dia thinks it's her friend, but notices the other maid isn't here, and realizes someone else touched her hair. Terrified, the girl tracks down the helper and manages to find her, as well as locate the vintage they're looking for. She reaches into the wine holder and manages to grab a hold of the bottle, but suddenly, something pulls her arm. The girl doesn't know what's happening and panics, but then she notices someone standing behind the other maid. It's a tall figure hidden by shadows, and it breaks the girl's neck before dragging her into the darkness. Dia is left alone to fend for herself, and there's no one to hear her scream. This manor is hiding a terrifying secret, and Evie here doesn't suspect a thing. Okay, this place keeps getting weird. There's definitely a bloodthirsty monster lurking around the mansion, but if Evie here was paying attention, she'd realize there are plenty of signs that something sinister is already going on. First of all, there's no good reason why a single maid is being selected to clean a massive library alone at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's also extremely strange that these girls' collars have numbers stitched into their uniforms. Normally, a housemate's outfit wouldn't have anything on it, and if extra work is being done here, it must be for a reason. Usually, an English manor like this would keep the same people employed for long periods of time, because working in an estate this big is a very demanding job. We've already met staff members that we know on a name basis, so the only reason they would number these maids is because they're replaced constantly. It's a dead giveaway that these women are expendable and being set aside from the normal staff for a special purpose. Now, the most concerning thing about this is that the bell from the library rang twice. It might not seem like much, but it clearly means a family member is already inside the room, because someone has to pull on the sash in order to ring the bell. More importantly, they intentionally rang the bell twice to select maid number 2. The truth is, you wouldn't need to select the maid at 3 in the morning for routine cleaning work, and the butler could have easily decided who was best for the job. Evie here should have realized that this woman was being chosen chosen with a certain preference in mind, and when you combine this with their numbered uniforms, there's no question that these girls are here to be taken advantage of. It's very possible this is the British version of Epstein's Island, and we have to escape this place immediately. If it were me, I would be looking for maid number 2 the next morning to find out what happened, and if we discover that the girl has gone missing, then it's all the evidence we need to confirm that our lives are in danger too. As you can see from this itinerary, everyone expects us to be here for 3 full days, so with this in mind, I would use the next day to explore the grounds, observe the staff's routines, and try to plan an escape without anybody knowing. This will have to be done extremely carefully, because powerful people like this have a lot of influence, and it wouldn't be surprising if local police were on their payroll. As soon as the families realize that we know they're up to something bad, they're going to make sure we can't go home. That's why it's important to act as normally as possible until we come up with a plan and escape before the wedding ceremony begins. That night, Evie calls her coworker to talk about meeting her relatives and tells her they're good people. None of them have treated the girl poorly, and she shows off this fancy dress Lord Walter gave to her. It's clear the man is interested, and the woman heads for the garden where all the wedding guests have gathered. They all applaud her arrival, and her cousin takes the woman into the reception, reassuring Evie that she shouldn't be nervous. The maids of honor are the next to be announced, and they immediately approach the college student, welcoming her to the event. Curious, Evie asks the blonde Lucy how they know the bride, and she reveals that all 3 of their families have served Lord Walter's lineage for generations. That's when the taller woman Victoria comments that Evie is lucky to be here considering her background, and the college student excuses herself, not liking the woman's attitude. At the bar, Lucy admits to her that she's always wanted to visit New York, and Evie offers to show her around the city, but they're interrupted when Walter is announced to the banquet. Spotting the American, he walks up to her and takes the woman by the hand for the customary first dance. It makes Evie nervous, but the man calms her down, reassuring her they can go somewhere quieter after this. Later, he takes her to this private study and notices that she's fascinated by a pottery wheel. The woman explains that it reminds her of her mother and asks him about his parents, but the man reveals that they passed away. It's tragic, and Evie jokes that they're like characters from a Charles Dickens story, but the Lord explains he's not a good person, revealing that he's done all of this only to impress her. That's when fireworks suddenly shoot up into the sky, and the two share a passionate kiss, with no idea that Victoria is spying on them. That night, Evie is sleeping in bed when she wakes up and notices something crawling on the canopy above her head. Terrified, she climbs out of bed and crawls underneath it as fast as possible, but then she sees a monstrous hand reaching out to grab her. Suddenly, the woman is pulled out from her hiding place and realizes that Walter has found her. She tells him that there's something in the room, and he turns on the light, but finds no sign of any intruder. The woman doesn't know what to make of it, but is certain she wasn't seeing things. Later, the old maid comes in to clean up the broken lamp, and the college student admits that it feels like she's going crazy in this man. Mrs. Swift is about to say something when the Lord walks in and dismisses her for the night, letting them have their privacy. Checking in on Evie, the man offers to stay by her side until she falls asleep, and the woman accepts. They lie together on the bed, passing the time by asking each other questions until she finally falls asleep. The next morning, the woman wakes up to find her bed empty before she hears a knock at the door. That's when the maids of honor walk into the room and tell her they've set up a spa date together. It's unexpected, but Evie joins them, leaving her phone behind, and soon she'll discover a shocking secret. Okay, this girl is being groomed. Ever since Evie has arrived, she's been constantly haunted each night, and the situation is clearly escalating. It's terrifying, but the bigger problem is that this is being done for a very specific reason. The first night, she clearly saw a human figure staring at her from this chair. Then the next night, a creature was crawling over her bed, but the family keeps going out of their way to make her feel like the most important person in the room. When you look at the pattern that's being established, this is clearly a psychological trick, because the more terrified she is of being alone, the safer she will feel with everyone else. If Evie was paying attention, she'd notice that the whole family is intentionally trying to make her doubt her own instincts. And this is exactly what happens when you're being groomed by a cult. Walter here is basically playing good cop, bad cop by haunting her at night and then showing up to tell her there's nothing to worry about. The more this happens, the more she will question her own judgment, and this makes her a lot easier to manipulate. Right now, we can't trust anything we hear or see, and that's why if I were in this situation, I would try to get close to Mrs. Swift. Earlier in the bedroom, it was clear that the woman had something to tell us, but when Walter showed up, she stopped herself and left. This is the sign that she has information the man wouldn't want her sharing, and it's exactly what we need in order to escape this place for good. I would have looked for moments alone with her, so I could ask if she thinks Walter and the Alexanders will make a good new family, hoping it'll trigger her to tell us the truth. If she's on our side, then she might even be able to smuggle us out of the mansion, and we need to do everything we can to find an ally if we want any chance of leaving here safely. Now, Evie also should should have trusted her
showing us all
instincts
the
and
scenes
further
where she getting
investigated
away.
whatever was haunting her during the night. First thing she should examine is the carpet in front of the door and the fabric of the bed canopy, because the creature's nails would have frayed the carpet and left small tears or puncture marks. If she finds something, then it's undeniable proof that the creature was real and that Walter is intentionally lying to us. Later, the group arrives at the spa, and as Evie gets a manicure, she tells Lucy how excited she is to finally meet the bride and groom tonight. Curious, the blonde asks if she would want to get married anytime soon, but the American answers no. That's when the other woman interrupts and asks if Lord Walter has revealed anything about his relationship with the maids of honor. It's a strange question, and the student makes it clear that he's kept that to himself, but has no problem with him keeping secrets. Victoria doesn't believe her and asks if she isn't curious about what he does in the locked rooms, when suddenly the beautician cuts Evie's finger. It's starting to bleed, and the British woman steps out of the pool to take a look at it before sucking on the wound. Disgusted, Evie storms off and leaves the spa, but as she walks into the lobby, the woman spots the library door. She's curious to know what's inside and heads over to a cabinet, discovering a hidden compartment with the key inside. Unlocking the door, the woman enters the room and snoops around, but accidentally knocks over a jar. She quickly begins to clean up her mess, but finds something horrifying. It's a file with all kinds of information about her, including the results from the DNA test. Heading to her room, Evie begins packing her things when Walter walks in and asks what's going on. She hands over the papers, and the man tries to explain himself, but the woman scolds him for stalking her. Defending himself, the Lord tells her that he only ran a background check to make sure she wasn't going to take advantage of him and wanted to know more about her. It calms Evie down, and the Lord begs her not to leave, insisting that he won't keep any more secrets. With that, the two kiss, and after an intimate moment, they talk in bed. They're falling in love, and Walter suggests they should just get married, pointing out that everything's already been set up. The woman jokingly agrees as he gets up to leave, and Evie makes it clear she wasn't serious about the wedding, but the
they got crazy dick. Crazy dick. Nigga dick is crazy. Is this nigga the vampire? Is this nigga dick gonna be shaped weird? But when he changed, dude, he got like a... The nigga get like 30 inches on shit. Do he? I don't know.
Man silently walks away. That night, she arrives at the dining room where all the guests have gathered and sits next to the Lord at the head of the table. He welcomes each of the three families to his manor and formally begins the banquet, but Evie notices there's something strange. Confused, the woman asks where the bride and groom are, but he doesn't answer. Instead, he stands up to make another announcement, reminding the group that they suffered a great loss ever since the last lady of the house died, but now she will be replaced. That's when he reveals that he and Evie are set to be married. All the guests applaud and celebration, but then a maid is brought to the table and her throat is slit. Horrified, the American stares in shock as the family members begin to laugh and act like nothing happened. These people are not.
Nigga, she got fangs. What you mean ain't nothing
happened? Stares in shock as the family members.
Nigga, she got canines. If them not her fangs, nigga, she. Nigga. Nah, her teeth, nah.
Members begin to laugh and act like nothing happened. These people are not only insane, but some of them are vampires, and the serving staff takes the maid's blood, filling the glasses they hand out to the guests. Okay, this is really f***ed up. Evie finally knows the truth about why she's here, and it's more terrifying than anything she ever imagined. Not only are they a cult of vampires, but she'll also be forced to marry Walter, trapping her here for the rest of her life. Now, everyone in the room knows that she's going to be resistant to this, and that means she should expect to be put under constant surveillance from this point on. It doesn't get much worse than this, but there might still be one thing we can do to improve the situation. Earlier, this old man expressed gratitude that the family discovered Evie because everyone else is male. This comment reveals that she's essential to their survival because she's the only living woman in the family tree, so their plan is dependent on keeping her alive. With this in mind, if I were Evie, I would grab one of these knives and hold myself hostage, threatening to end their scheme unless they let me say goodbye to my friend. The family will be desperate not to lose Walter's new bride, so they might give in as long as she promises not to reveal the truth. If she can convince them, then once she gets in touch with her friend, Evie would have a chance to send a coded message that she's in trouble. When the woman first landed in England, Evie and her friend set up a strict rule not to trust men with goatees. If the woman says she's met someone who's very trustworthy and will be growing a goatee for their wedding, her friend will instantly know that something is wrong. It's a long shot, but if we don't try— I would have said
goatee. I would have been like goatee. You know anything about a goatee?
everything we can to make contact with the outside world, then we'll be stuck here forever. If all else fails, the best way to handle this situation would be to pretend that we've given up any hope of escape and accept the proposal. It might seem suspicious, but if there's one thing these people understand, it's lust for power and wealth. That's why I would start making requests that demonstrate self-interest, and as counterintuitive as it might seem, this might be enough to convince everyone in the room that we've bought into the idea, and now we're just haggling over a price. With that said, this strategy is going to take some time, because they'll need to be convinced for long enough that they relax their surveillance. The bad news is that we'll probably still have to go through with the wedding, but it also gives us a better chance of escape. Afterwards, her best bet would be to wait a couple months, then look for a toxic.
She knew the dick was good enough. She slept with that nigga a day in. That's crazy. Shit was too easy to get.
Planned on the mansion's grounds to poison herself with. It's important to remember that the three families in attendance are lawyers, accountants, and real estate brokers who have been serving the lord of the manor, so there aren't any doctors among them. This means that if we can find and ingest a very low dose of something like nightshade or oleander, the symptoms will be serious enough to force the family to rush us to a nearby hospital for treatment. Getting out of this mansion is the most effective way to improve our chances of escape, and even if we get extremely sick, it's still worth the risk. Walter continues his speech, reminding them that their families have been providing him a wife from each clan in return for financial success. This agreement was threatened when Evie's great-grandmother, the previous lady of the house, died, and the woman realizes that this entire trip was actually meant to fulfill this ancient pact. Traumatized, the college student stands up and tries to leave, but the waiting staff stop her. The Lord calls her back to the table as the woman begs the others for help, but they refuse. Panicking, she starts banging on the door, but the Lord stops her and demands she calms down. There's no one who will help her, and the
so that was this nigga hands. Look at this nigga hands.
Banging on the door, but the Lord stops her and demands she calms down. There's no one who will help her, and the staff take the woman away, leaving her in a cellar by herself. That's when the maids of honor walk in, revealing that they're married to the vampire lord, and the tall woman demands that she stop resisting. That's when Evie suddenly realizes that the creatures she saw in her bedroom was actually Victoria, and asks why they're doing this to her. The vampire explains that their bloodline is special, and when they're all united, then they become immortal. Lucy here also explains that she'll be forced to drink Walter's blood during the wedding ceremony to become his new vampire bride. Once the man drinks her blood, they'll all continue to live forever and be bound to his will. Suddenly, a helper jumps up and tries to escape her bindings, but gets stopped by her restraints. The tall vampire picks the woman up, intending to drink her blood, but Evie begs her not to. Humoring the American, she orders the butlers to prepare the maid for the ceremony and has a surprise for Evie. She opens up a coffin, mocking the girl that this is where she'll be sleeping, and the vampire cuts her free before throwing her into the coffin. With that, the woman nails the door shut as the American begs for help and walks away, leaving her trapped inside. Later, she hears a creaking sound, and the front of the coffin opens up. The old maid has found her and insists they need to get out now. Confused, Evie asks why she's helping her, and the woman reveals that her great-grandmother was
Nigga, her eyes look crazy. I thought... Never mind, let me stop. I am very sorry. I do apologize. Cause nigga, I got a crazy sleeping eye too. I mean lazy eye too. I ain't gonna lie, I got a crazy sleeping.
Close friend, but the American needs to get out of here before the staff catches them. She warns Evie that if they do, her best chance for survival is to either stab them with a stake or burn them, and urges the girl to leave now. The woman escapes from the manor and heads for this old building, but soon she'll discover something horrible.
This my right eye
this
too.
was not smart. It won't take long for these people to realize Evie is trying to escape.
Like,
but the problem is that she's just left behind her most valuable resource. Mrs. Swift here isn't a vampire, and is probably going to be killed for helping the woman, but there's one area where she has a huge advantage over the rest of the family. This house is massive with many secret passages, and that's why if I were Evie, I would insist that the maid use her knowledge of the property to help us escape. Traditionally, estates like this have a very specific way of managing their staff, and the mansions were actually built so that it would be possible for the servants to move throughout the entire building without the lords and ladies ever needing to see them. It's also important to point out that these vampires are centuries old, but from what we've seen—
Loki ain't think of it, but this lady ain't been used the bathroom in 3 days. No, 2 days. I don't even know how long she been here, but it ain't been a week. It been 2 days, something like that.
They're only concerned with enjoying the lavish lifestyle of an English manor. This means that they're probably not that familiar with the servant corridors that run throughout the mansion, and it's the best way to avoid getting caught right now. Mrs. Swift will have more knowledge about these areas than anyone else, and since everyone will assume that we don't know the layout, they'll be checking obvious exits instead of the hidden pathways throughout the mansion. Now, this will give us a good head start, but we're going to need something to lure the family away from our escape route, and that's why we need to create a distraction. The manor is very—
I wouldn't mind becoming... Or wait, what's about that? Or are they sacrificing her? Or is she just about to, like, I don't know, cause I wouldn't mind becoming a vampire if this was whole thing.
Old and has been renovated with electrical
I would
wiring,
not
but
mind
they
at
also have
all.
candles scattered throughout the building. With
that
this
should
in
be
mind,
fire.
if I were Evie,
Cookie.
I would take one to the kitchen and light it, placing it in the far end of the room. Then, I would turn on the gas to let it
would
leak
not
before running
mind.
away, making sure any doors into the kitchen are closed. When the gas eventually reaches the flame, then it will cause an explosion, starting a fire that could burn the house down if it's not
That was
stopped.
actually
Now,
gonna
we don't
happen.
see a stove in this kitchen,
Niggas
but they
dead,
clearly
niggas
have
getting
one
like,
because
what's gonna happen
earlier
in
at the
the story,
banquet,
thinking
they
so
served a
smart.
huge variety of roasted meat,
My fault. How to be? I do apologize for saying that. Cause nigga real life do go over the whole movie, but bro keep on showing me the scenes of what's exactly gonna happen and then say it like he don't know what's gonna happen. I ain't gonna lie, but nah. It's still fire though.
including frogs. As long as they have gas stoves somewhere, then by filling the room with
I am
fumes that can be
Alicia. I don't got
ignited
no
by an
types of
open
clout.
flame, a fire will start
Alicia
spreading
out
and
right
staff
now.
members will be
I'm
called
serious.
in to put it out.
I ain't
This
even
strategy
watching
would give us an
you. Literally
opening
put
that
me
we
on
can
for
take
real.
advantage of and run past them into the woods.
I
As the
know
fire
something about
spreads,
this.
the nearby staff will divert their attention to putting it out, leaving gaps in their patrol. Since the vampire cult needs Evie alive, we don't have to worry about getting killed if they catch us. And a big distraction like this will give us our best chance of getting out of here safely. Once she reaches the ice house, she can arm herself with some of these tools hanging on the wall, and could even break the handle off of a shovel to use as a stake. Inside, the woman is shocked to find the helpers' corpses have been stored here, but then she hears men approaching. She quickly finds a place to hide, and the staff members dump the old maid's body on the table above her. It's horrible to see, and Evie tries to stay quiet, but can't hold back a whimper as blood drips onto her face. That gets the butler's attention, and he looks around the room, realizing that she's somewhere in this building. Acting quickly, the woman rushes outside and locks the door behind her at the last second. She's managed to escape and sprints into the woods, hoping to find help. That night, she arrives at a nearby town and begs this woman to call the police. Seeing how scared she is, the old lady lets her in and offers Evie a cup of tea, as the old woman's husband makes a call. The American excuses herself, looking around the house, but then she spots a shocking photo. It shows the older
You
couple
already know.
standing with the vampire lord's butler
already
and
know.
realizes that they secretly work for him. Putting down the phone,
Yep,
the
you
old lady
already know.
informs her that police will be here
But
soon
just
and
when they say they
insists
found
that
the
she drink
picture.
her tea. With only one chance to escape, Evie throws the hot tea into the husband, but gets whacked in the head by the old lady and blacks out. Later, she wakes back up in the manor right next to Walter and demands to know who he actually is. The man reveals that he is a creature known as a Strigoi, and his father was Vlad Dracul. That means Walter is actually Dracula and tries to convince her to join him as his new vampire bride. She'll be able to live forever with immense
Oh, for
wealth
real,
and
that shit
points out
fire.
that it's everything a poor person like her could want.
Nigga, I thought that she was just gonna get killed off for the rich. Nah, nigga, I'm becoming a vampire. Fuck you mean, nigga? Bang, bang, bang. Nigga, the only thing bro, low key sad. I'll speak about it another time. The only thing that I'm scared of is probably dying. That's the only thing. I feel like everybody's scared though. I'm not scared of anything, so I wouldn't mind jumping from a 30-foot building. I wouldn't mind putting my hands on a snake. Actually, I did find a decently long grass snake too, or not long, but it's like this big, and that's big for a grass snake. It was brown, and it was about like I don't know how the camera show it, but it had like a decent thickness too. It was the biggest one I've ever seen, and I don't know why I just said that, but no, I'm not really scared of anything. I wouldn't mind going inside a cave or like a cliff where them people would be going through them tight things. I'm not claustrophobic. The other thing, yeah, I wouldn't mind going deep down it. I mean, I would be a little scared. I'd be like a little jumpy if I went deep down into the sea. I mean, I'd be a little jumpy because I wouldn't know what's around me because it's all dark and stuff. And there's literally zero types of light. But I don't know. The only thing I'm probably scared of is death. I want to live forever. I don't want to die. This shit getting too deep. I'm gonna speak about this all the time, but damn, bro.
But that makes the girl furious. Evie spits in his face, rejecting his offer, but the man makes it clear that the wedding will happen whether she likes it or not. That's when maid number 4 here wakes up, terrified of being in this room, and the vampire lord walks over to the woman to drink her blood. It's too much for Evie to take, and she passes out. Later, she wakes up at the wedding ceremony, being led by her great uncle down the aisle. Everyone has gathered here today, and she's instructed to sit down next to the vampire lord as the priest asks their wedding vows. It's a terrifying experience, and she notices that they've brought out one of the maids, but there's something here that can help her escape. Noticing several burning candles on the altar, she quickly comes up with a plan as the man accepts her to be his bride. She agrees to him being her husband, and the Lord holds his arm to the woman, letting Evie drink his blood. With that complete, she suddenly stands up and begins to transform into a vampire, giving her the power she needed to execute her plan. Okay, this was brilliant. Evie has managed—
There's no point in escaping now. You're a vampire, like. Nigga, are you slow? As soon as you bite
to
this nigga
convince
hand,
everyone
it's
that
GG,
she's
bro.
committed to the cause, and now she has the strength of a vampire. The problem is that with 3 other vampires in the room and a crowd of cult members, she's completely outnumbered. Now, as terrifying as it sounds, the good news is that if she's thinking clearly, there might be a way to get her revenge and escape from this nightmare once and for all. Earlier, Walter explained that the only essential members of this cult are him and his 3 wives. Everyone else are leeches who provide him with rights in their bloodlines and enjoy unspeakable wealth in return. We were also told that the vampires can only be strong if all 3 bloodlines are joined together. This is exactly what we want to hear, because it gives us the perfect target for who we should use our new powers to kill. If it were me, instead of trying to run away, I would keep sucking Walter's blood to weaken him further. We can already see that it's drained a lot of his strength, and that's why the smartest thing to do is make sure he's weak enough for us to kill. Everyone watching the ceremony is going to assume that the new bride is just getting thirsty as she transforms, and even though our enthusiasm might seem strange, it's unlikely that anybody will intervene. Now, traditionally, to kill a vampire, we need to drive a stake through its heart, and Mrs. Swift has already confirmed that the creatures are vulnerable to stakes, beheadings, or fire, which are all classical weaknesses in vampire mythology. With this in mind, once we've made Walter weak enough, I would look for something wooden to stab him in the heart as quickly as possible before his strength returns.
So
There's not a lot of
vampire.
options in this room, but
Wait,
the best
tripping.
thing that might do the
Then she
job
go
is
kill
this
these
old
niggas.
man's can—
Whole time, wait. Whole time she killing these dudes. Whole time she's killing these dudes when she already done become a vampire. What's the point, nigga? You could have learned about your ancestry. You could have got right, like, nigga. You just killed shit. You just became a vampire and don't know like step 1 to living as a vampire. On top of that, and she gonna be able to infect other people. Like, can you have a cult now? She don't know a single one of their weaknesses. Like, nigga, she a sellout. Nigga, I wouldn't mind becoming a vampire, nigga. Tripping.
if we use our vampire speed and grab it
Tripping.
before snapping off the end to make
Plus,
sure—
nigga, we already an invasive species. Like, I would prefer to be a vampire and live off human blood, because now that you think about it, nigga, it's like 7 billion humans. And then you will live forever, bro. No. Hold on. Let me get to discussing with myself. Hold on. First off, I'm living forever. Or maybe when you got blood. I don't know if you can live off when you don't got blood. But you could go on spaceships, travel light years away. Go and find habitable planets and everything. Like, niggas don't understand how comp it would be to be like a vampire, to be immortal. I mean, it'd be crazy letting everybody else know that you was a vampire, but I feel like it wouldn't be that bad needed too, because there's hella humans in this world. So, like, we really an invasive species for real. That's so crazy. Niggas die every day. Thousands of niggas die every day. For real. Happy I don't, bro. God is good, bro. Please don't let nothing bad happen to me. Anybody in my family. Anything happen to me, bro. I'm so happy my dog was with me. So 15 times 7 is that how many? I don't know, but my dog is old. Bro's getting a hunchback and everything. I gotta take a picture or something with him again, cause he didn't take a picture with him this Christmas.
it's sharp, we might be able to kill
Lucky
Walter
Cat
with
at the
it
storm.
before anyone realizes
This
what's
shit could be
going
like
on.
30
If our
minutes.
plan is successful, then every vampire in the room will lose their powers,
Yeah.
because it's all tied to this man's
Oh.
blood. The bride's already hinted that if he dies, then they become human again, and that means killing this one vampire will fix all of our problems for
I thought she
good.
became
The
a
woman
vampire.
demands to drink from the
That was
helper next and walks over to her, but at the last second, she knocks the candles over, setting a massive fire. Furious, the Lord confronts her, but she stabs him in the heart with a stake. It's one of the only ways to kill a vampire, and with all the guests running out of the room in a panic, Evie breaks the maid from her chains. They quickly run out of there as fast as they can, but then Victoria comes rushing after them and tackles the American. The two women get into a fight and trade blows, but Evie is quickly overpowered. The vampire stabs her nails
Why
into
do
the
they still
American
have any
woman's body,
powers?
but she's suddenly attacked from behind by Lucy. Throwing the college student across the room, the tall woman demands the other vampire to stand down, but she refuses. They fight it out, but that was Victoria's biggest mistake, as she shoves straight into the spear of a statue, stabbing them both through their bodies. That's when Evie wakes up and sees the vampire lord's wives turn to dust. That's one problem dealt with, but there's still more to come. Suddenly, the butler attacks her from behind and shoves the woman into a room, determined to stab her to death. He's furious that she betrayed them all and pushes the tip into her chest, but Evie breaks the blade off, using it to kill him. She quickly grabs some cheese wire and gets to work setting the entire building on fire, making sure no one will escape. The woman walks through the hallways ready to leave when she sees the vampire lord crawling on the walls, and he's coming straight for her. Terrified, she runs for the exit, but at the last second, Walter manages to catch her. He's furious that she would reject everything that he could offer the woman, and now she'll die here, but this will be his last.
Then she got
mistake.
infinite
Evie
riches.
pulls up the cheese wire and wraps it
everything
around
that she
his
coulda
wrist,
wanted.
slicing it clean off. Seizing the opportunity, she kicks Dracula into the flames and lets him burn.
Money,
It's
like,
finally over,
tripping.
and now the woman can get out, having learned about
tripping. Well, I forgot what I did as the outro last time. Bang. Yes, sir. We good. I don't know, but I'm gonna just leave it off as that. Bang.